we can start. So welcome back, everybody. So we hope you had a refreshing break. So let's pick up where we let off. So now it's time for our workshop. Okay, so I'm so glad to introduce Miguel, Ángel, Benítez, Castro, and Jeniffer Moreno from the Zaragoza University, Teruel. Okay, who will be presenting the FOM Play Teaching-Learning Materials from for an innovative pedagogy workshop. Okay,
Right.
so thank you, Jeniffer. Thank you, Miguel Ángel. The floor is yours.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ariana, Catherine, the other colleagues from the University of Napoli, L'Orientale, for just putting together such an interesting and and wonderful webinar. So thank you, and also for the opportunity, okay, to share with you what we've been doing, okay, over these past 3 years, right? Okay, so we're gonna get started. That's okay, with something practical, right? So I'm gonna start sharing my screen, right? Okay, right, here we go. Hope it works. Okay, right. Okay. Right. Yeah. Perhaps I want to share my entire screen. So I don't know. Hope it works. Yes. Can you all see my screen now? Yes. Okay. Right. So we're gonna basically start the session by sort of having a little reflection, a little like sharing some ideas, some brainstorming about the topic of this wonderful project, okay, about Europe, how we feel, and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna ask, please, everyone, to basically grab your mobile phones, right? To grab your mobile phones, okay, and then go on this website, menti.com, right? And type in this code, okay, which is right at the top of the screen, 52821087. And just answer the question. The question is, how would you define your personal identity? In other words, who are you, right? So as easy as that. So grab your mobile phones and try and type in just a few like ideas about who you are. I am blah blah blah. Okay, and let's see what comes out. Okay, right? I hope it's working. Has everybody managed to access the link and the website?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right, I see that people are joining. Yes, okay. We've got one idea. Okay, good. We've got like 2 ideas there already. Right. Okay. Spanish young multiple smart woman. I am who I am. That's an interesting idea. I'm creative. I'm free. Nice. Okay. See that some people are still typing up some ideas, right? Good. It's interesting. It seems to be like one of the ideas that is sort of key in this context, which is Spanish. I guess it's because, like most of the members of our audience are Spanish. Right. But we've got another nationality adjective, which is Italian. With Spanish, we're Italian, right? Okay. So some nationality adjectives, some adjectives related to maybe, like British as well. Okay. Nationality adjective, some adjectives related to maybe our personality, our creativity, freedom. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. So the first question was obviously who you are, what are you? Okay, what's your identity, right? So that's okay. Let us move on to another sort of question, right? Well, it's not really, well, it's a question, but now it's going to be a survey, right? So a sort of survey, right? Okay, so the question this time is, do you feel European, right? And there's 3 possibilities. You have to choose either, yes, indeed, of course, I'm not quite sure, or no way? Okay, so could you please, like choose the option that, like suits yourself better? Okay, so I see that people are still voting. We've got about 13 participants who are voting. Seems that, like the winning option, the top option is yes, indeed. There are quite a few people as well, okay, who are not quite sure, okay, so okay, about whether they feel European. And there are a couple of people who basically do not feel European. Okay, right, that's interesting. That's another interesting finding. Okay, right. I guess that all the participants have already voted, have had the chance to vote. Let us then move on to the third question, right? The third question is, what is Europe to you, right? Could you please take, like 1 minute or so to try and, just try and think about what this word means to you and, just generate some ideas, okay, about what the word Europe means to you, please. Right, so there's several ideas coming up here. Democratic values, okay. Community that offers advantages, rights, protection, and freedom, okay. Right. Europe is diversity, history, and many cultures living close together. A continent with a long interconnected history, nice. It is a well-organized community with ideas in common, right? Nice. Okay, let's see. A safe space, right? So a safe environment or space, a continent, right? Okay. Let's see whether there are some additional ideas, right, come up here. Okay, a place full of opportunities, especially if you want to go abroad, as it is easier than other destinations outside the EU. Nice, interesting. Let's wait maybe some more seconds to try and see whether somebody else is. Okay, we've got another idea coming up, which is Europe is like a fruit salad bowl. Oh, that's an interesting metaphor. What a beautiful metaphor. Okay, it's a fruit salad bowl. Okay, or especially now that we're getting quite hungry. Okay, it's almost lunchtime. Each fruit brings its own uniqueness. Okay, nice, 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 nice. Okay, so we're all like fruits. Yes, interesting. Right. It's an interesting metaphor because actually later on, like Jennifer is going to tell you about another sort of food related metaphor. Okay. That we're going to use to talk about, like the materials and some of the ideas behind the materials. Right. Okay. So I guess we can, move on to the very last question. Okay. It's going to be the last question for you. Okay. So, well, the last question is obviously this beautiful project is called Format Play, Freedom of Movement of Play. So this is the key word, okay? So what does freedom of movement suggest to you, right? What feelings, what ideas come to your mind, okay? When you hear the word or the expression freedom of movement, what does it suggest to you? Opportunities, okay. Choice, opportunities, freedom, facilities, right? Okay. It's brilliant. Okay. Opportunity, right? So opportunities and facilities seems to be like the two, like most frequent words, the words that have been most frequently mentioned. Okay. Opportunity and facilities. Opportunities, the singular in the plural. Okay. and facilities, possibilities, choice, okay, opportunities, freedom, choice, opportunity, okay, right. So yeah, obviously, right, makes sense that most of the words, most of the expressions are quite positive, right? Evaluatively speaking, right? It's about freedom, opportunities, choice, freedom to decide, community, respect. Okay, so I guess that we could all agree on, okay, the fact that freedom of movement is something quite positive. Okay, that we should strive or work hard to preserve, right, if at all possible, right? Freedom to decide. Okay, right. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. A question we will ask you later on, not now, but later on, is other different freedoms of movement, okay, within the European Union, but we'll get to that, later on, okay, don't worry, okay, but that's a good starting point, okay. So, well, thank you all for these wonderful and beautiful contributions, right? I guess that we can now, after this, sort of brainstorming and reflection, I guess we can now, delve into, our presentation itself. Well, Jennifer and myself, we're gonna tell you about what we've been doing in this beautiful project, the Format Play project, okay, over the past few years. Right, so can you all see the sort of PowerPoint screen? Is it visible for everybody? Yes? Okay, so I'll just enlarge it. Okay, so hope you can all see it. Right, okay. So the Format Play Teaching-Learning Materials Innovative Pedagogy Workshop. So this is us, Jennifer and myself. But as we will tell you in a minute, okay, it's not just been us, okay, so who have been in charge of doing, like, creating those materials, been a larger group, which we will introduce in a minute, okay? So this is what we've been doing, this initial reflection, so we can skip that, okay? Right, okay, so you know already about this wonderful project, the Format Play project, okay, the Free Movement at Play project, so we will not elaborate on that. So also about like all the partners, all the friends, okay, who have been involved in making sure that like this project has been come to fruition, okay, right? So different universities in Italy and in France and in Spain. So we are from the University of Zaragoza, right? And just in a nutshell, this is what the Format Play project has involved. The compilation of those 100 life stories, okay, by European citizens living in the 3 countries of the project. Like some of the colleagues have been in charge of doing discourse analysis of the interviews, okay. Some other colleagues have been in charge of the creation and the dissemination of those social media campaigns to promote positive messages, okay, of the project. And in terms of this dissemination, in terms of this outreach, okay, to society, there's another important pillar of this project, which is the creation of pedagogical materials. And this is what Jennifer and myself are going to be telling you about today, because this is what our task has been, okay, creating pedagogical materials. So first of all, I will just tell you very briefly about who we are, okay. As I said, okay, we've been like quite a very nice team of people involved in this beautiful task, okay. So our team has been mostly interdisciplinary in the sense that obviously when it comes to generating pedagogic materials about such an complex issue and topic as is European citizenship, freedom of movement, obviously we need to sort of collaborate, okay, from different standpoints and perspectives. So our team has involved a collaboration between 2 sort of disciplinary strands. Well, Jennifer and myself, we do belong to the English Studies Department. There's another colleague who belongs to the French Studies Department. Jennifer and myself, we are linguists, discourse analysts, okay? But then another part of the team has been constituted by colleagues from the Educational Sciences departments, okay, from pedagogy, right? So we've joined hands like together to try and see what could come out of that, and we're quite happy to say that the result has been quite positive, right? Well, hopefully you will get to enjoy it, okay? Right, so as far as the English and French Studies Department is concerned, this is basically us. This is like Jennifer's over there. Then there's 2 colleagues from like our department as well, Maria Jose Luzon and Ana Cristina Vivas, also from the English department, and there's our colleague from our French department, okay, with Teresa Barea. And from the Educational Sciences department, so we've got two colleagues, Esteredo, who's from the University of Zaragoza and from our faculty in Teruel. And then we've got our colleague, Purificación Pérez, Puri Pérez, from the University of Granada, right? So our task, what we've done has involved a collaboration between University of Zaragoza and University of Granada. It's been a joint effort, right? Well, this is a beautiful, nice picture, okay, that some of the members of our team, had taken during the great conference that was organized by our colleagues in Granada a few weeks ago, okay, where we really, really enjoyed it, in all respects, right? It was a beautiful conference, okay? Right, just an overview. So what will we be covering, okay, in this presentation, in this sort of workshop? So we'll be sort of telling you about the materials themselves, the objectives, the time and the methodological grounds. So we'll just be, touching upon some of the main aspects of the materials. And then we'll just, take you through, okay? We'll just take you through each of the modules involved in the materials, and if we have time, we'll just have a dry run of some of the activities, right? So let the curtains be drawn, okay? Let the curtains be drawn, okay? Right, this is like the front cover of our materials, the FOM Play Teaching-Learning Materials for Education, University Students, European Values and Citizenship. This is the front cover of the materials, okay? And okay, so what have been our goals? Or what are the goals, the main goals of our materials? Like, why bother, right? Like designing and creating those materials, right? One of the objectives that we wanted to accomplish through those materials is to raise awareness, to create some conscience among university students and staff members, and if possible, also, just the general public, about EU citizenship, right? In other words, what does it mean to be a EU citizen? What does it mean to be European? That was like the foremost, the top, sort of objective that we wanted to achieve, right? Another objective was obviously to try and encourage the development of positive attitudes towards the advantages of belonging to the European family or community. So, the idea of the entire FOM Play project is to generate and disseminate positive discourses, positive ideas about the advantages, the strengths, the good things that make us who we are as Europeans, right? But in so doing, we also wanted through our materials to help develop students' critical thinking and critical skills in, for example, telling distinguishing between, fake news from information that is, really true, and also in detecting, kind of discourses that may sort of run against some of the foundational values of the European Union, which unfortunately, is something that is quite rife in nowadays world. Now over to Jenny.
I hope you can hear me well. If you see me moving my hand, it's because it's Miguel Ángel who's presenting, so I'm asking him to move forward. So as Miguel Ángel already said, our aim here is not just to learn or memorize fact, but also to make students think and reflect about concepts such as identity, belonging, etc. Okay, so to achieve this, what we have done is we have drawn on robust educational pillars that give the project a bit of coherence and depth. So please move. These include values education, which helps students reflect on ethical principles such as justice, fairness, respect. Okay, we also based on intercultural citizenship education, okay, which encourages students to interact across cultural boundaries and understand different perspectives. The key competencies for lifelong learning, which remind us that education is not just about passing exams, but also preparing for an active participation in society, in life. We also integrate intercultural communicative competence so that students can express themselves and listen to others in ways that are respectful and constructive, even when they don't agree on certain topics. We also work on pluraliteracies and critical literacies, encouraging students to read the world critically. So not only printed text, we work with images, social media posts, videos, political discourse, etc. Okay, and very importantly, we so the whole project on our materials are grounded in grounded theory. So which means that we build knowledge from real data. So we use interviews, lived experience. You will see that later on. Yeah, so methodologically, we take a clear step away from traditional and passive lectures, which may seem sometimes a bit boring and dull for students, so where they just have to sit and listen. So instead, we welcome active learning. We use cooperative learning so that students work together and learn from each other's experiences. We also aim to encourage academic debate and help them develop the ability to, argue with evidence and to listen and try to understand other points of view as well. We design task-based learning activities as well. So we ask students in our materials to solve meaningful problems and issues, not only to complete meaningless activities. We use visible thinking routines as well to make their reasoning explicit, multimodal literacy, so that they engage with concepts through images, videos, mind maps, graphic organizers as well. So in this way, students don't only just take in knowledge, but they also build knowledge. Yeah, and of course, we have been reading a lot, and there's a lot of theory behind these approaches, but we don't have, unfortunately, time today to explore every author or every model in detail. But I think it's worth pausing to highlight a few key ideas that run through that run through all of them. So, for example, the concept of education, which is very important in our case for our materials and for Europe as well. So we can here recall a very relevant question posed by Delors back in the 90s. Okay, how can we learn to live together in the global village if we can't even manage to live together in our closest communities, our towns, our regions, or neighborhoods? So this question continues to resonate today, which reminds us that education is not just preparing people to get a job, or to become to get more knowledge, whatever, but it's about preparing students, preparing people to live together, okay, to participate in public life, in social life, to take responsibility for the world around them as well. Okay, so in this sense, Delors developed the concept of education around 4 pillars. So the learning to know, the learning to do, learning to live together, and learning to be. So when we talk about the learning to know, it's about acquiring the tools of understanding, developing curiosity, building a foundation for knowledge, okay? Learning to do is to put that knowledge into practice, okay? Developing practical skills, being able to act in the world. Learning to live together is about developing an understanding of others, respecting diversity, working together to build peaceful societies. And learning to be focuses on personal growth, self-awareness, creativity, sense of responsibility for one's own life and choices. Okay. However, the truth is that when we look at higher education today, okay, what we see is that we find a focus mainly on two pillars. So the learning to know and the learning to do. Okay, so university programs are usually excellent at providing students with theoretical knowledge, professional skills, but sometimes they dedicate far less time to helping students to live together or to understand other perspectives, to collaborate across differences, or to develop as whole human beings. Okay, so with these materials, we seek to fill that gap, okay, and bring learning to live together and learning to be back into the center of education. Yeah.
Right. So now it's me again. Right. Okay. Right. So the answer, okay, to this sort of crucial need, okay, lies precisely as Jennifer has just mentioned in values education. Okay, so this is the approach that we should be pursuing or applying, okay, in education, right? and particularly the concept of citizenship and what we mean by intercultural citizenship or education. So citizenship is like the stepping stone, the starting point for our approach. Okay. However, the concept of citizenship is not as easy as it may sound. Okay. So when we think about citizenship, is it just a legal concept, meaning that I am legally a citizen of a particular country, or does it mean something else? So the literature on the topic argues that citizenship is quite a complex puzzle and situation, in the sense that the whole concept of citizenship has moved beyond just the shallow understanding of it only on legal terms. And this concept has been broadened, so in the sense that it is no longer linked to a single nation or state. Okay, so nowadays we talk about globalization and we talk about global citizenship. Let us remember Delors, okay, in the quotation that Jeniffer has showed you a bit earlier, okay, where he talked about the global village, okay. And this concept has also been deepened in the sense that it is no longer linked to just the political, social level, but nowadays citizenship is something, a concept that ought to be treated, dealt with also in terms of the moral development of, like future generations or students, okay? So when it comes to education, we should deal with, we should address the concept of citizenship from the point of view of what citizenship can do to generate solidarity, to generate good feelings, okay, and cooperation among everybody, okay. However, what is the problem nowadays? Unfortunately, we live in a world, okay, in a very fractured world, okay, as these sort of visual metaphors just shown, okay, whereas different very recent authors, very crucial, okay, and seminal authors such as Ruth Wodak or Sposito 2021-2024, where they argued that although it's true that we live in a very globalized and unified world, unfortunately, there are many walls, many borders, many wars, unfortunately, emerging, all over the world, okay, and this is something that doesn't seem to stop, unfortunately, okay. And for example, Eleonora Esposito, where she talked about the concept of super diversity. So our world nowadays is highly diverse. There's a lot of diversity. Problem though is that diversity is very often still nowadays, unfortunately, once again, let me use this adverb a lot, unfortunately, okay. It's a synonym of inequality, vulnerability, and it's often met with stereotype and prejudice and discrimination. So the situation is quite bleak. So the question that we posed ourselves, okay, that the FOM Play project, okay, posed, ourselves, like all of us posed ourselves, was what can we do to counter all this negativity, to counter, to do something against this horrid situation, right? Right, the answer lies in education, obviously, and to be more precise, in collaboration, interaction, and in reflection. So the answer lies in offering students across Europe, and why not also offering the general public across Europe conditions, opportunities to participate in occasions where they can interact with each other. So people from different cultures, different countries can get to talk to each other in situations that are safe, in safe spaces where people basically respect each other, they feel included, they trust each other, and there is a lot of reciprocity. So the ultimate goal is obviously, thanks to this concept, to develop a sense of belonging to a broad and diverse community, in this case, Europe, and obviously to generate positive discourses around the whole concept of Europe and European citizenship. And now over to Jenny.
Okay, so talking about citizenship and how to teach that, okay, there is no single way to teach citizenship. So we identify three main models, okay, of citizenship education that help us understand the different approaches that schools and universities can take. So we find the adaptive model, the individualized model, and the critical democratic, okay? So the first one we could say that is the most traditional one, where students just are asked or are helped to adapt to the society they live in, okay, where it focuses mainly on transmitting the rules, norms, values that a society has, you know, so that students can fit in and maybe become well-functioning members of a community, okay? It may help students to learn about how society works, you know, and what is expected from them. But if we only stay at this level, maybe like we risk leaving no space for students to question what happens in the world around them, okay? Then the individualized model shifts the focus towards the learner, okay? So here citizenship education is about personal development, where, you know, we try to help students find their voice and develop their own opinions, make their own choices, okay? So basically here, this approach recognizes that students are a future citizenship with unique individual needs and interests, okay? But it can as well become too focused on the individual if we forget that citizenship is about living together and sharing responsibilities, okay? So here is where the critical democratic models becomes essential, okay? So here, basically, we need to teach students how society works, or discovering it by oneself, encouraging students to question, to reflect, to act, okay? So critical democratic citizenship education sees students as potential change makers, okay? They are asked not only to understand the world, but also to imagine how they could make it a better place, how to work with others, to, you know, to get so in this model, students are asked to debate, to dialogue, to participate. They have to like practice democracy, not just learning about it, okay? And this is exactly the spirit of our material. So the key idea is that citizenship cannot just be taught, you know, through lectures and abstract definitions, but it has to be lived and experienced also in the classroom, okay? Okay, and here is where we will be talking about food as well, as you mentioned before. So someone before in the survey mentioned the salad. So Europe is like a salad, but yeah, real, like you are right. That's the aim. So here we have at this point we have the metaphor of the melting pot or the salad bowl. Okay. So here, this metaphor becomes really powerful. So in a melting pot, as you see, so everyone's identity melts down until there's only one flavor left, okay? So difference disappears. But in a salad bowl, each ingredient keeps its flavor, its color, texture, you know, but all together they make a richer and more nutritious dish, a super Mediterranean salad, okay, with olive oil. So with this image, you may understand what kind of society we want as well to create or help create with our materials as well. So one that erases differences or one that values them. So one that values differences. Yeah, over to you. That's not mine.
Okay, that's fine. So as Jennifer was actually saying, so our goal is therefore to create a society which is not or to promote a model of citizenship that is not multicultural. So multicultural involves the fact that basically different cultures coexist, okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are sort of willing to interact with each other and learn from each other, okay? The model that we sort of should be focusing on or should be fostering is one that is intercultural, in the sense that people from all walks of life, from all, you know, like cultures, from different situations, should be willing and, you know, quite wanting to actually interact with each other, learn from each other, being critical about one's own culture, and as a point of departure to actually get to meet other people, because obviously our cultures themselves are not perfect, okay? So we have also to be critical about who we are and, you know, try and learn some good things about other cultures, okay? So this is what sort of this, you know, approach or this concept involves, okay? So Jennifer, earlier on, she showed you like this picture of these columns, right? So she's been, you know, talking about some of the main foundational principles and theoretical pillars of our approach. So now we're just going to put a very nice, you know, ceiling or roof, okay, on top of this temple and create a beautiful sort of Greek or Roman temple, and we'll just tell you about the final product, okay, about our materials themselves, okay? Hope you're ready for that. Right, okay, so this is like some snapshot overview of our materials, okay? So our team, okay, we have created materials for 24 hours of on-site training. Those materials are divided into 4 modules, as I will tell you in a couple of seconds. And each module is split into 6 hours per module, 4 sessions in total, and 90 minutes per session. The materials are multilinguals. That means that they are offered in English, Spanish, Italian, and French. As you see there, like all in all, like the materials could sort of amount to almost a textbook, about 180 pages of materials, okay? And our idea, okay, once the FOM Play project is over, is to try and convert the materials, to try and export them into a European micro-credential, okay, that can be, you know, exported across different universities across Europe and alliances, okay, to try and promote these training in European citizenship across different European universities. So this is what we aim to do, what we, you know, would really like to do once the project is over. We just told you that with, you know, like the materials are divided into 4 modules. These are the 4 modules, okay? So module number 1 is about European citizenship and freedom of movement. So basically, as you know, the main topic of the project, the FOM Play project, is freedom of movement at risk. So obviously the most obvious starting point would be obviously to make students reflect on what it is that they understand by freedom of movement, other different freedoms of movement, and so on and so forth. Once the whole concept of freedom of movement has been assimilated, settled, understood, the next point is to actually think about what happens to our identities, okay, when obviously we move across borders, right? So basically, who are we in terms of, you know, citizens? How do we feel? Do we feel like from our region? Do we feel European? Do we feel from our country? How do we feel in general? And the last 2 modules are concerned with what it is that happens when obviously, you know, like people from different cultures, different places get together, when we move across borders. What may happen is obviously sometimes quite negative things in terms of situations of where, you know, like in-groups are separated from the other groups, of situations of discrimination, stereotyping, and prejudice. So how can we detect those situations, and how can we fight against the spread of those sort of, you know, like prejudices and discriminatory practices? And the last module is a way of, you know, concluding like this training on a positive note by reflecting on what it is that Europe does at the moment to integrate, to include, you know, like people from all sorts of cultures, countries, and so on and so forth. So reflecting upon the concept of inclusion, integration, equality, equity, and so on and so forth. So now the question is, how did we basically get to this final product? Okay, obviously, you know, like the materials were not generated out of the blue, you know, by magic, as if by magic it involved like really hard work there. Right, so there have been already also several materials out there which are available, okay, to actually work on the concept of European citizenship. However, our materials, the FOM Play Teaching-Learning Materials, offer an extra bonus, an extra added value, which is the fact that the materials stem out, emerge from a previous analysis of all the narratives, all the sort of interviews forming part of the Format Play project. So basically the reason why we chose those topics for each module, the reason why we chose particular subtopics to be covered in each module is something that emerges from our prior analysis of a sample of the interviews. And for that, we used the methodological, the analytical approach of grounded theory, which is a kind of content analysis that allows us to basically try and see what the text have to say to us. Okay, let us, as in corpus linguistics, John Sinclair would argue, let us stress the text, let us, read the texts without any sort of prior theory or preconceptions, and let's try and see which topics emerge from them. So for that, obviously, for this reason, we did obviously use a sample of the Format Play interviews, as you know, like this is what the website actually looks like. So as you know, the other colleagues will have already explained, anybody can access interviews and can actually search for keywords, expressions within the interviews. Okay, so this is what we did. Okay. How did we go about, doing this data analysis? Well, we did a close reading and analysis of a sample of 40 interviews. There were 100 interviews, so we sort of analyzed and read about half of the whole corpus. So we focused on the analysis of 16 men and 24 women from Spain, France, and Italy. Each team member analyzed and read in very, very much detail. It was a very, very close and intensive reading, 6 interviews. And basically, for time constraints, we can't just go into detail into how we actually did that. But the application of grounded theory involves, like different stages. There is one stage where basically you read the text and then you try and extract micro categories. So we read the text, we got together, we had a very lengthy meeting for about 3 or 4 hours where we discussed some of the topics and ideas that had emerged from the interviews, and we came up with a list of, I think it was about 10 or 15 subtopics. Then after that, we went back to the interviews to try and see whether we could narrow down, like those 15 and 16 topics to a fewer amount of topics. So we got together again. We spent about 4 or 5 hours, talking to each other, debating, discussing, not arguing, obviously. And the final stage involved basically narrowing down like all the topics to just, 4 macro categories, which are actually the 4 macro categories that we use to actually generate the 4 modules. Okay, so European citizenship and everything that is involved in freedom of movement and European conscience, the concept of inclusion, which includes the inclusion, diversity, you name it, and so on and so forth. Social exclusion related to prejudice, stereotyping, discrimination, and so on and so forth, and identity, right? So everything that basically revolves around people's multiple identities, right? So after all those meetings, we came to basically those refined categories. And then when it came to actually designing the actual materials, okay, for each of the modules, we also applied once again grounded theory in the sense that we just went back to the Format Play corpus. And then, for example, if we were working on the topic of discrimination, social exclusion, we basically went to the corpus and looked for keywords relating to the topic of social exclusion, exclude, stereotype, try and retrieve, try and recover, try and gather passages, key passages that from the interviews that basically somewhere or another covered, like those topics. And we later on used those passages as one of the guiding sources, one of the stepping stones of our materials. Okay. So each module comprises 4 sessions, right? There's an initial session in which basically we lay the grounds of each topic, so some sort of theoretical introduction, but as Jeniffer said earlier on, it's not a sort of lecture, an academic lecture with students are just sitting and just listening passively, no way, I would say, right? the way we do it is by, like providing students with little activities that will get them the opportunity to reflect. And then after this reflection, we'll just give them what we call as theoretical kills, right? Little theoretical snippets of information. Then session number 2 is a session in which students will work cooperatively. Students will be provided with key passages and fragments from the format play interviews, and they will have to basically do some kind of reflection analysis where they will apply what they learned in session 1 to the actual real interviews, right? Session number 3. Oh, sorry about that. Oh gosh, let me go back. Okay, session number 3 is the debate session, where basically we'll just provide students with 2 positions around a particular, like topic related to each module. And then students will be split into 2 teams, and each team will take charge of a particular position. And they will have to get together for some time, for about 20-30 minutes. Sometimes it's something they will have to do for homework at home before coming to class, right? They will do a little bit of research on each position, and then once it's over, they will just engage in a very nice and very interesting academic debate, okay, with different stages. And the final stage, the final session, is one where the students will be involved in generating and sometimes also publishing and disseminating some sort of multimodal product. Over to Jenny.
Okay, so can you please? Yeah. So each session lasts for, first, each session lasts for 90 minutes, okay, each. So there are 4 sessions per module, as Miguel Ángel just explained, and in all of them we've got activation. So at the very beginning of the session, just to make students, get engaged or get in touch for the first time, maybe with the topic, because sometimes they haven't heard about those concepts that we're presenting. Okay, then we also have things like input. We provide them with input and also a bit of theory, but we will explain later a bit how we do it. So not in a way as a lecture, as we already said. We ask students to do some tasks. We also make them participate in academic debate, as we will see. We try to follow at the very beginning like this pre-task, while, and post. We decided that we would provide students with an exit ticket. So at the very end of each of the sessions, students create a kind of exit ticket on a brief reflection of what they learned during that session. Okay, they are able to also to reflect and share what they have been discussing and learning in each of the sessions. And when they create the multimodal production, as Miguel Ángel says, so at the very end of each of the sessions, we ask them if they want to publish it, but of course it's using their social networks, but it's up to them. We also include homework for those teachers who want to implement homework, or for some of the sessions, because not like all of them follow the same structure, but each of them is different. So you will see that we treat different topics and stuff. And we also provide useful references and also additional activities for those teachers who may want to implement them in their classrooms and may want to add more information or work more with a specific group. So as we just mentioned, like we have designed like a set of activities that combine different methodologies, okay, collaboration, structural reflection, critical debate, okay. We basically want to help our students develop their sense of belonging, okay, not only to their group, but to Europe, or also to the world, okay. So as Miguel Ángel said already, the main added value of our materials is that we use the format play interviews, okay, where students are able to hear or to read directly from stories from migrants and European citizens who have lived experiences of freedom of movement, inclusion, sometimes also exclusion, okay, in their current country, okay. They also learn how these people understand other concepts like identity, solidarity, because sometimes we have a different idea if we haven't had experience, and we must say that this connection with real voices makes the topic really emotional also, and maybe more direct for our students as well, more powerful, we'll say. To enrich, of course, our materials, okay, we provide also scholarly references in the form of theoretical pills. So we have called them theoretical pills, and these are, as you can see here in the image, they're very short and accessible explanations of the key ideas that we have retrieved from educational theory. Okay, so for example, sociology as well. So these ideas or these theoretical pills will help students understand better the concepts that we work in each of the sessions, and also to connect their reflections to academic knowledge. We also work with European Union policy documents, okay, so that students can see how these issues are addressed at an institutional level. So, for example, this will help them to bridge the gap between their personal experience or the personal experiences they have heard in their stories and the policies that we have in the European Union, okay, which may help them understand what is being done at a local level or at a bigger level, you know, institutional level. In terms of materials as well, we take a multimodal approach. So we use images. Some of them have been created with artificial intelligence. I know that that is not good for the environment, but we have tried to be very concise so that we didn't create a lot. We also tried to retrieve some of them from the internet as well. You know, we have used these resources to invite students to question, to compare what they see with their own experiences, with the experiences of the migrants, of the interviews, you know. We have also included short videos that also capture, you know, real voices and situations, you know, also from videos from the European Union, the European Commission, also to make learning as well more dynamic and engaging. Also to help students organize their thinking, you know, their reflections. We use graphic organizers and mind maps as well as part of a visible thinking approach, you know, these routines as well to, you know, to allow them to externalize their ideas, to, you know, see connections between concepts, compare the answers or their reflections with their mates, you know, and, you know, also to enable them to see how their ideas and how their understanding evolves over time, you know, at the very beginning of the teaching with these materials and at the very end of the session. And finally, as I said before, we include a set of additional activities, okay, for those teachers that maybe consider that the group, or maybe there's something that may be worth working on or delved more into, okay, so that teachers can use them flexibly, I mean, depending on their needs of their groups and their characteristics of what they consider. Yeah, as Miguel Ángel said, we created 4 modules, and I will be now introducing the first and the last one, okay? Well, now the first, then Miguel Ángel will be talking about the second and the third, and then I'll be back with the fourth one, okay? So the first module is a kind of introduction to the concepts of European citizenship and freedom of movement. You know, at the end of this module, we expect students to be familiar with the different types of freedoms that of movement. No, so for example, we have freedom of movement for people. You know, we can travel and go to other places, other countries in the European Union, and we don't need a passport, which is maybe one of the main advantages that many students may highlight. Also freedom of movement services. Here we can find products from other countries in the European Union, okay? Freedom of capital as well, so money, we can retrieve money everywhere here, or even have different accounts within European Union, okay? We also want our students to reflect on the challenges and opportunities that freedom of movement in Europe presents, okay? to think about what positive aspects or experiences they have had, or what negative aspects, because sometimes, well, in our case, what we have seen is that many of our students haven't known Europe without, so when it was out of the European Union, you know, outside. So it is difficult for them to understand that we need a passport to go to Italy, maybe. So that it's interesting to you know, for them to reflect, because not many years ago it was in a different way, you know. And also we expect our students to be able to engage in discussions on European citizenship as well, to share their you know, their concerns or their views as well, and also to kind of express the key concepts that they retrieve from the module in a digital format. So as I will be explaining in a minute. But before I delve into much more detail, and in order to help you, well, I don't know whether we have time. Do we have time to know? Okay, maybe just 1 minute. Okay, we had prepared some like very short activities just to show you an example of what we designed here. So for example, here we would start the session by asking, so how would you feel? So reading this excerpt, you know, from the interviews, and asking, okay, what do you think the speaker means when they talk about my European dream? You know, what is a European dream, or what does this concept mean to you, or do you believe that there is a European dream? Okay. Unfortunately, we don't have time to really carry out this activity, but yeah, but you can see that in the materials, and maybe hopefully you put that into practice sometime. So as Miguel Ángel already explained, so each module is organized in 4 sessions, 90 minutes each, okay? So basically they're all connected. So in the first session, we start with a kind of introduction, theoretical concepts. Then we work with interviews from the FOM Play project. Then we carry out we do a debate, academic debate, and then finally we end up with the production. So in this case, in the first session, okay, we begin by introducing the 4 fundamental freedoms of movement, as I already mentioned: goods, services, capital, and people. Okay, these are really at the very heart of the European project. And, you know, as I said, sometimes if we don't reflect on it, we don't realize how many advantages we have because of being able to enjoy these 4 freedoms. Okay, so we want here basically students to reflect on what these different freedoms of movement mean in practice. So we want them to reflect on how the freedom of movement for services shape their job market or digital services, okay, that they use every day, or how the freedom of movement affects people in their daily lives. So for example, when they're able to get an Erasmus grant to study abroad or to work in a different country, or when they go to visit friends, you know, without borders getting in the way. Then session 2, so here we basically build on this reflection. Okay, we invite students to, you know, to reflect and to think about the opportunities and the challenges of that freedom of movement creates, you know, by turning to the FOM Play interviews. Okay, so students here work with some selected passages highlighting moments where migrants speak about the benefits and also the difficulties of mobility. Okay, and also that where students are able to see that this freedom of movement is a complex phenomenon. It's not that easy as it sounds or as they have known it. Okay, it is not always positive or not always negative, and that's something they will be able to see with the materials, with the excerpts we have selected. But it's a lived reality that brings, of course, both opportunities and challenges. In session 3, okay, it's here where the reflection becomes debate. Okay, so here all the academic debates that we have carried out in session 3, so in each of the modules, have the same structure. Okay, so we follow the structure of an academic debate. And here in this case, the students take part in a structured debate on the question of whether freedom of movement contributes positively or negatively to European citizenship. Okay, so here basically the structure is simple but carefully designed. So it has been all very carefully planned. So students have to research arguments, organize evidence, and present their cases like in a respectful and rigorous way. Okay, they have a limited time as well. So here basically the aim is not to win the debate, but to develop the ability to argue, to listen, to counter arguments as well, to refine one's own thinking in response to new evidence as well. So basically in this session, we challenge students to move beyond surface opinion and engage with the complexity of the issue. And finally, in this module, in session 4, okay, we bring learning into the public sphere, let's say. So here students are asked to create an engaging and informative social media thread. So for example, using X, formerly Twitter, or Blue Sky, okay, explaining so first explaining what freedom of movement is and what European citizenship is to a general audience, okay, because they have been working here at the end of this module during the whole 4 sessions, but they will here have to explain it to the general public, okay, so to other people who may not be familiar with this concept. So in this task, students will be asked to summarize complex ideas clearly as well and concisely, also to use language that is accessible and to think about how to capture attention online. So in a social network like Twitter. And we also hear the main aim is to also encourage the students to be creative, using images, short videos, like creating, using their own images or creating them with artificial intelligence.
Right. So now it's me again. Okay. Right. So let us look at the module number 2. Okay. So module number 2, remember, is where we basically look at the intersection, the connection between European citizenship, between Europe and identity / identities, right? Between our identities. Okay. So basically, through this module, what we expect the students is to help them reflect on how do they feel in terms of their geographical belonging, okay, to either a particular region, to a country, or just to Europe. So, okay, to think about their sort of geographical identity / identities, to help them also identify some of the good things, some of the assets about being, a European citizen. Okay, so you may feel Italian, you may feel Spaniard, but perhaps you haven't quite thought about whether you feel European. There may be some advantages about these sort of general European identity. Our students will also be encouraged to reflect or to become aware of the construct of Europe. So what does Europe actually mean? Okay, what does it involve, and so on and so forth. And students will be able to relate all of that to different theories about the construction of identity, different psychological and linguistic and discourse analysis theories about the construction of identity. Unfortunately, we don't have time. Okay, so this is a sort of little activity, okay, that our students would be introduced to in the very first session. Okay, so students would have like this quotation, which is first, I am from my region, then I am from my country, and finally I'm European. So students would have to take a few minutes to reflect and maybe then to share their ideas with their shoulder partners or in groups. And then there is another activity where students would have to sort of rearrange these elements, region, country, and Europe, okay, and to think about and to talk about, discuss which would best reflect their own sense of belonging, okay. The reason for these activities, because in the interviews, this is something that came up very, very often, very frequently, okay. There was a question that all the interviewees were asked: how do you feel in terms of your belonging, okay? And there were many people who said, I feel Neapolitan, for example, and then I feel maybe European, or I feel first of all European and then I feel Spanish. there was like quite a bit of, like a variety of opinions in this respect. So that's something quite interesting, okay, to reflect on and to think about. This is the overall structure of this module, okay, and how the different sessions are structured and the topics followed, okay. So now I'm gonna basically take you through or talk you through each of the modules very, very quickly, okay. So on session number 1 is called What is Identity for You? So in this first session, we introduce our students or we introduce our participants to some of the main theories about what identity is. So basically, we introduce two theories: Erickson's theory of identity, which says that identity is something sort of chronological and biological. So we all human beings go through different stages in the creation of our single identity. When we are children, and when we move to adolescence, when we become adults. And this theory is opposed to Hall's theory, who argues that identity is not a single entity, it's something multiple. So we talk about identities, and identities are basically changing and malleable as we get exposed to different contexts. So the context, the discourses in which we get involved basically shape, change, like mold our multiple identities. So basically students will, be invited to reflect on their own identity, on what they understand by identity, how they build their identity, and then to try and find a link and match between the different main tenets of each theory of identity and their own lives. So in session number 1, students will try and understand what it is that we mean by identity, and to try and match those sort of theoretical definitions with their own personal lives and experiences. Moving on to session number 2, and session number 2 is when students will get exposed to key excerpts and fragments from the FOM Play interviews. So key fragments where basically the participants talk about how they feel, who they are in terms of their identities. So students in this session will, it's where they will actually reflect on their regional, geographical, and sort of European identity, which order accords better with themselves, which order they feel most comfortable with, and then they will try and identify all of that in the like the FOM Play interview. So they will get together in groups and they will just do an analysis on the basis of some guiding questions, because obviously in session number 2 we just don't leave students up to their own devices. Okay, we don't say analyze the interviews. No, we provide them with a set of guiding questions that will guide their observation and their analysis. Session number 3, once again, it's a debate session. So in this case, the question or the position that we'll ask students is, what if I stop being European? The two positions is being European benefits us in many ways, or being European doesn't basically have any effect, or is quite something perhaps even negative for our identity. So in this case, students will have to identify the advantages of being European, and they will obviously reflect on, like the contribution of this European identity to their other maybe identities. And also they will reflect on the connection between their individual identity and a group and a collective identity. So perhaps they feel in one way, but perhaps the other members of the group they belong to, both the micro and the macro group, perhaps the feeling is quite different, it's quite the same. So it's something that is worth reflecting on. And session number 4 is quite a creative and musical session, right? In the sense that students will have to work all of them together. Like Europe, the European Union, Europe has an anthem, okay, which is like Beethoven's symphony, okay. But this sort of anthem has no official lyrics. Okay, there are some lyrics in Spanish. Or in Spanish we've got La Oda a la Alegría, so ode to happiness. Okay, but it's not official. So we ask the students to just work together and try and come up with a like a lyrics to the European anthem. Okay, and then after creating these lyrics, they are supposed to create another song, using perhaps artificial intelligence, if they like, to create another song in little groups where they basically integrate some of the values that make us European, along with some testimonies from the FOM Play interviews. So integrate perhaps some key sentences from some of the fragments that we provide them with. to create a beautiful song, okay? Right, so moving on to module number 3. Remember, module number 1 is about European citizenship and, you know, moving across borders, right? So freedom of movement. Module number 2 is about our identity, who we are, okay? And remember that modules number 3 and number 4 are basically about, you know, like in groups, out groups, inclusion, exclusion, and so on and so forth. So module number 3 is about the concept of exclusion, social exclusion. So the 3 main purposes or goals behind this module are to help our, you know, public, our students, our participants become more aware of the multiple levels in which European citizens may feel excluded or discriminated against, sometimes more explicitly, sometimes more covertly or implicitly. We will also provide them with the tools that will allow them to critically identify and assess power inequalities, prejudices, and discrimination, you know, in a variety of texts, stories, images, or political speeches also. And then the students at the end of the whole module will have to get together and create a very nice multimodal infographic where they will have to propose, you know, some measures to combat discrimination. Once again, unfortunately, we don't have time to implement this activity, but this is one of the activities that students would have to complete. If I remember well, in session number 1, the students are provided with different key quotations from the format play interviews. As you see, there are some words highlighted or underlined, okay? All those words are pronouns: they, we, our, they, their own, these, one of my own. So basically, we make our students read those sentences and just work in groups and try and tell us what is going on there, what's happening, what are the words underlined doing, what are the pronouns doing, and obviously they are creating this polarization, this ideological square, as Theo van Dijk said, between us and them. And this is something that we have discovered in the format play interview sometimes. This is the structure of the module. Okay, so now I'll just sort of briefly talk you through each of the sessions. Session number 1 is called Coming to Groups of Social Exclusion. So in this first session, the students will basically try and understand what it is that we mean by social exclusion, and then the different ways in which social exclusion is enacted and represented in society. So by ostracizing other people, ignoring other people, by insulting other people, you know, like the different ways in which social exclusion happens. And then at the end of the session, they will reflect on what it is that they understand by stereotyping, the connection with social exclusion and the connection between stereotyping, and how stereotypes are revealed in prejudices, which are more emotional and effective, and discrimination, acts of discrimination, and episodes of discrimination, which are more behavioral. Section number 2 is called Are We All Equal? So quite interestingly, at the beginning of the session, we'll just start off with a key quotation from George Orwell's Animal Farm, where basically it says that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. This is just the beginning of the session. And we ask the students to reflect on what the author might mean by that. And then after that, we just provide the students with a set of fragments from the format play interviews where there are loads of sort of discriminatory sort of episodes that reveal the connection between diversity and inequality. And so in this section, we look at the concept of intersectionality and ethnic hierarchy. So in the format play interviews, we actually discovered the presence of so-called first-class European citizens and so-called second or third-class European citizens. So we basically face the students, confront the students with those fragments to make them sort of reflect on what they think is going on, what they think is happening there. Section number 3 is one where basically we introduce a concept, quite negative sometimes, concept of nation, right? Nation is a concept which has, maybe, discursively constructed, presented for good or for bad reasons, okay? For bad reasons, nations are often used, the concept of nations is often used to create borders that divide us, okay? So in this session, the students will have to take sort of two positions. One of them is sort of migrants in rich European nations and migrants in stray European nations. So should we place borders on receiving more migrants? Should we not? Okay, so they have to engage in this quite controversial debate. And finally, session number 4, which has a beautiful name, which is called Specific Relevant Details and Actions. Okay, so we depart from a beautiful poem that was written about 3 or 4 years ago by a 9-year-old British child, okay, where she talks about the poem is called Specific Irrelevant Details, so specific irrelevant things that we human beings sometimes use to discriminate against each other. And at the end of this session, the students will basically have to work together and come up with 10 possible measures or actions that they could take to avoid, prevent, or tackle exclusion and discrimination, not in general terms, not across Europe, but in their immediate context. So, for example, in Teruel, in Napoli, in Perpignan, so in their specific context. And now over to Jenny.
Okay, so the final module focuses on European citizenship and inclusion. Okay, so by the end of this module, students are expected to be able to reflect on first of all, on their own impressions of migrant inclusion, because there are many types of inclusion nowadays. So we're talking here about migrant inclusion within Europe. Also, we want students to become familiar with the European Commission's action plan on integration and inclusion, okay, from 2021-2027. And finally, the last learning outcome would be that students are able to develop their ability to build critical evidence-based arguments about inclusion-related topics here. Which will be seen as well in the creation of a multimodal product that we will see now. So, well, as we were saying in the previous modules, we won't have time to start with this activity. Okay, that would be a kind of warm-up activity in which we would ask students if they think that assimilation, integration, and adaptation are synonyms, whether there are differences, and here in this case we ask them to come up with their own ideas and their own definitions. Okay, yeah, as I said, we don't have time to delve into this, but you can see that and read about it in the materials as well. So in the same way as the previous module, so we talk about theoretical aspects of inclusion in the field of migration. Also, we work on the interviews. We carry out the debate, and finally we create a product. Okay, so in the first session, basically we focus on reflecting and analyzing key concepts, okay, that often get mixed together, and sometimes the difference is not clear. So students here work with terms such as assimilation, integration, adaptation, equality, equity, as well as we saw in the previous example. So we encourage students here to critically think about what inclusion should look like in practice. Okay. So in the second session, okay, we move to policy and lived experiences. Okay, so here students are asked to read the European Union's action plan on integration and inclusion, okay, and they're asked to identify priority areas. Okay, so we have divided, because there is a very long document, so we divided the document and we read it carefully into different topics, so the main areas of action. So for example, these are education, employment, health, also social participation. Okay, we use this information because it's what is being done at an institutional level, but we use it to connect it with the interviews, the format play interviews as well. Okay, so here students analyze selected fragments, okay, that reveal how migrants experience these different areas, okay, in their lives as migrants. So stories, for example, of struggling with recognition of qualifications, or migrants who have problems to find a house just because they are migrants, okay, or because they lack support from local communities, okay. So this pairing of official policy documents and also with official authentic stories, you know, from these migrants, allows students to evaluate whether the action plan really addresses issues that are real, you know, that are faced by migrants in real life. Then in session 3, so we bring the debate back into play. So here students participate in a structured academic debate on a provocative question. So here the question would be, is the inclusion and integration of migrants in Europe a reality or a utopia? So here basically students are challenged to take a position, okay, in the same way as they do in the other modules, okay. And some may argue that Europe has made great progress, of course, that they have to cite policies, stories, examples, etc. Others maybe will point out that you know, there is still a persistent discrimination and there are barriers as well. And finally, in the last session of the module, here we want to end the module and the whole you know, materials on the creative and action-oriented note. So here students turn their attention to the power of communication, and they begin by analyzing first real advertising campaigns such as those created by Vox in Spain. So we have mainly used campaigns created by Vox because we were trying to find in other languages such as Italian or French. But I'm sorry to say that they are not as creative as our politicians here. Here you have an example of one of the campaigns they created. And here basically we work with these images so that students have to identify communication strategies that are used. So for example, language or images or slogans, emotional appeals, etc. So here the representation, okay. Then students are invited, okay, to design their own campaign and create a poster, okay, that promotes the inclusion of migrants in Europe. And here we ask them to reformulate discriminatory phrases. So for example, things that are commonly said, negative things that are commonly said towards migrants, and turning those negative messages into positive and empowering ones, okay. So this session is usually, so the final session on the product creation is usually engaging because allows students also to express themselves creatively, to imagine how they could contribute to changing public discourse, okay. And so here we believe that this is a good way to make them put their critical thinking into action, you know, and finish the module on an empowering note.
Right. And to wrap everything up, okay, fortunately we're still in time, okay, so to wrap everything up or to conclude, yeah. Right, okay, so we've been telling you about our materials, the projects, the FOM Play Teaching-Learning Materials. So as I said before, as we said before, there are, you know, out there in the market, you know, several other, you know, sort of materials, okay, to work on the concept of citizenship, European citizenship, but our materials offer, you know, different bonuses or different added values, okay? As we have argued throughout this presentation and showed throughout this presentation, one of the main values and bonuses of our materials is the fact that they have been created, have been designed, have been born out of real data coming from real life stories and testimonies by, you know, like European citizens. And both the macro and the micro topics for, you know, like the materials and each of the activities in the sessions have emerged, stem from our prior content analysis, intensive content analysis of the interviews through the application of grounded theory. Another bonus or added value of our materials is that just as they stand, they can be used standalone or in combination. What we mean is that they can be used as a sort of micro-credential in the sense that one lecturer basically implements like all the 4 modules, okay, over 24 hours of teaching, of face-to-face teaching, or they can be used standalone in the sense that perhaps there is a lecturer in Spain, in France, in Italy, in Germany, anywhere in Europe, who may wish to just take only one of the modules, maybe only one of the sessions, and just implement them with their students in class, right? Another added value is the fact that basically we have really strived really hard to make sure that our materials make the students like active participants of their learning process, and also materials where the students will be working on and developing their pluraliterate, critical, and multimodal skills, which is actually what nowadays world is like. So nowadays literacy is not just about reading or writing the word, just a written word, the oral word. It's about being able to identify, to look at images, videos, and so on and so forth. And another added value is the to maybe to use go back to rely on CLEAL. Okay, so the use of both lots and HOTS. Or what are lots and HOTS? So the use of different cognitive levels and skills, the use of lower order levels, where the students basically are invited to understand concepts, remember concepts, and always towards the end of each session and towards the end of the entire module, the students are engaged in, they have to participate in activities where they will have to use their higher order cognitive skills by applying what they've learned, designing something new, creating something new. Okay, so we believe that our materials offer quite a nice progression, okay, from lower cognitive skills towards higher cognitive skills. A question that we've been asked very often, in previous, conferences and online webinars is, could those materials be used with little children in primary education? Could they be used with adolescents, with teenagers in secondary education? Well, our task, okay, as part of the FOM Play project was to design materials for university students, okay? So the materials have been designed with this sort of audience or public in mind, okay? So perhaps they could also, obviously, it could also be used with, general public. But the question is, could we adapt the materials to little children, to primary education context, maybe to secondary education? Yes, of course we could. That would be like something great and something that we perhaps will do, once the project is over. But first of all, we would the next step would be to actually run all the materials and see, how they actually work in a real situation and test them. Okay. So these are some references that we've used in the creation of our materials. Okay. And well, thanks a lot. Grazie mille. Merci beaucoup. Gracias. And now if you have any questions, comments, or whatever, we'll be just really happy to hear them or to answer them. Thank you so much. Grazie mille. Merci beaucoup. Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Miguel Ángel. This was very rich, very insightful. So are there any questions, comments from the floor? We have a few minutes. Yeah, Catherine?
Pardon?
No.
Okay. Hello. Thank you so much, Miguel Ángel and Jennifer. This was a lot of work, and I think the next step, as you were saying, is to use these activities. So you really inspired me, and I hope to be able to use them myself. I'm just wondering whether you are going to use them in the next few semesters, or are you?
Yeah. We're actually planning on maybe using some of the activities and some of the subjects, some of the modules that we are teaching right now, because we teach in education degrees here in our faculty. So we teach future primary school teachers, okay, who are specializing in English. So we are thinking about maybe using some of the activities. And we're also thinking about, applying for maybe some funding whenever some kind of call comes up, to actually maybe create some kind of blended intensive program, okay, some kind of BIP, okay, where maybe we can implement the materials. And obviously, this is something where basically we will ask you all to collaborate with us if you're happy with that, because it would be great if we could maybe launch or go ahead with this kind of BIP that involves, like perhaps, like the different universities also, which were part of the format play project. This would be like I think like the first sort of step, okay, like trying maybe a BIP, a blended intensive program, and then at the same time try and start getting all the paperwork done, starting all the administrative process behind the transformation or the transformation exportation of the materials into a European micro-credential. In actual fact, one of the colleagues in our team, Esther Edo, she is actively involved in the European Alliance, to which the University of Zaragoza belongs, the UNITA Alliance, okay? She is actually involved in the work package precisely about micro-credentials. So our colleague Esther will actually tell us about the different steps that we have to take in order to make this a reality. But as I said, yes, we are thinking about using the materials right in some of the, some modules that Jeniffer and myself are right now teaching. Then another idea is to, like try and work on a BIP application. So we'll email you all, okay? So obviously we'll perhaps have a meeting at some other point to try and see whether we can do it maybe together. And the third sort of macro step would be to try and see what we can do to make it a micro credential. So
it would be fantastic. And
yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you.
I might use a couple of them in my.
Of course.
I have a course in intercultural communication.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, of course, the materials that are out there, they're open just to be used by, just anyone, and they can be used, as we said, like all of them together, or you can just pick and choose whatever, suits you best according to your students, to your interests. Okay, so thank you. Yeah, great.
Okay.
Can I come in just
Yeah, Pascual, hi.
briefly? Hi.
Hello, Pascual.
Hi, everyone. So thank you so much for this presentation. I think it is pretty amazing. I am super excited not only to hear about the materials and the plans, but also I'm excited that, to the best of my knowledge, I think this is one of the very few corpora that, in a way, deal with social justice issues, and that, thanks to your materials, guys, can be taken to the classroom. Not just the language classroom, but more generally to the classroom, where we educate in the best way I can think of young students. And I think this is so necessary at this very precise point in time. It is absolutely, I don't know, it is a must that we do something about it, and we can in a way benefit from these. We can all benefit from these interviews in a way that can also give back to our students now and in the future. So just thank you, Miguel Ángel, and thank you, your fantastic team in your university, and also your colleagues in Granada for such a wonderful resource.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pascual, for obviously inviting us, okay, to form part of this beautiful project. It's been, great, working with you all, and so a huge thank you, obviously, to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. So I have a quick question to everybody, actually. Okay, could you switch on your cameras for a quick online group photo to share? Yeah, Miguel Ángel, if you can stop your screen sharing. Yeah, Pascual, you're perfect.
Allora come facciamo? Perché tu adesso sei.
facciamo lo screen.
Okay.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, yeah. All right. So, would you like to say something or?
No, you
Okay.
first.
Okay, so I guess we'll reach the end, and what we hope is that the discussion today, the findings we shared, will, have inspired us to continue to deal with freedom of movement and talk on freedom of movement in our classrooms and in our research. So just a quick reminder regarding the event at European Parliament in 2 days, okay, where the results of the FOM Play project will be presented. So this will be a very important occasion also to further share these findings and also strengthen, I think, the impact of this project at a European level. So I would like to conclude and thank Catherine Russo and the scientific committee for the trust and for letting me convene this webinar. Pascual Perez Peredos, our PI, for his constant support, and all the FOM members for their collaboration and dedication. And a special thank to our today's speakers, so Patricio, Miguel Santiago Yan, and Ritain, Boria Malzano Vasquez, Maria Cristina Nisco, Annalisa Raffone, Miguel Ángel Benítez Castro, and Jeniffer Moreno for their insightful and generous contribution, and all our attendees and participants who join us today for their attention, their time, and engagement. So I think we are officially off. Okay, so thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and hope to see you very, very soon.